Hi everybody, welcome to Caketastic Cakes. It's Jen and I'm going to show you how to make the three main characters from PJ Masks out of gum paste. And if you see me using any tools or supplies you can use, check the link in the description below. It should be able to help you out. And if you're having any questions about whether to use gum paste or fondant, there's also a video down in the description that you could take a look at to see the differences. Okay, well I went online to start and found a picture of the three characters, Gecko, Catboy, Owlette, and printed it out. And they were kind of overlapping in the picture, but that's okay. I'm going to work around it. So I'm starting with Catboy first. I cut out his picture. It's at the size that I wanted it to be. I rolled out some blue gum paste and I am just using it as a template. So I cut everything away. I got a little template and now I'm going to start cutting up my template. And if you've ever seen me do these like flats before, you're going to see that I do layers. My flat decorations are like onions and ogres. They have layers and layers. So what I did was I cut out his hand because it is coming forward. It is the foremost thing, so I want it to be forward more from the rest. And I cut out the hand, cut out another blue hand, and I'm putting it on top, kind of trimming off those extra fingers because I don't want them, and putting it right on top. So now it looks like it's coming forward. I'm going to do the same thing with this leg. His one leg is coming forward, so I cut it out, trim it out in some more blue gum paste. It's all the same thickness, and put it on top of where it would otherwise be. Trim off a little extra if you need to. The things that are behind him, like that one hand, I pressed down with that tool there just to make it look recessed a little bit. And then I'm going to cut out his mask. I'm going to have his mask in his face, and his mask is going to, again, come out a little further. I have his mask there that I have some beige gum paste. See right there. So I cut it out, going to trim it out using my template just like normal. I am going to save myself a little bit of effort by doing his mouth closed. You're going to see later on. I'm not going to worry about trying to add teeth and everything. Because when you have details that are real teeny tiny, they can become very difficult and not worth it, honestly. Now his mask, you can see I'm cutting it out, but I'm not cutting out the ears. I'm going to leave the ears behind where the mask will be. And that way, again, gives it just a little bit more depth. For Catboy, I cut out the eye holes of his mask. I'm not going to do it for the other ones. I probably honestly shouldn't have done it for this one because his eyes were kind of wonky. I had to reshape them as best I could. So maybe not the best choice, but that is what I did, so I'm explaining it to you. I'm using some light blue. This is sky blue. Gum paste again. I rolled it really thin to do the stripes of his uniform. So I put the big one in the center on the top there of his head. I have a little one on either side, trying to have them curved inward a little bit like they are in the picture that I was working from. Just like that. Gonna give him a couple little tiny rectangles that I cut out, again real thin and skinny, for his eyebrows. Make sure you have them nicely curved. And then I'm going to put the stripes on his uniform. Again, just a skinny little long piece that I cut. I put water down over his arm, and I'm just trimming off the extra so that it's the length and the amount and everything that I want. I'm going to put a couple little pieces of that skinny bit that I've cut there around his neck, because the picture I had, it looked like he had some stripes kind of coming around his neck toward the front. So that's what I'm doing right there. And now I'm going to cut some pieces for his leg. His legs are more like arrows almost, like downward pointing arrows. So I cut out some kind of wedges, as you see. And I'm going to put them in where I think they belong. Trim off the extra. Call it good. Do it again. Put it in place where I think it belongs. Trim off the extra. And there you go. Catboy now has his one leg. And to separate out his little foot there, I just put a piece of light blue, just kind of curved it around like the top of his foot. Because otherwise you couldn't really tell what was going on. Now this zigzaggy thing I cut was my attempts at making more zigzags, and then I realized that I didn't really need them. So yeah, I just did one zigzag or arrow really, and then a bunch of lines on the other leg. I'm using this little flat kind of oval piece to be his shoe, because the one leg is kind of kicked back so you can only see the top of the shoe behind him, and the other foot is coming forward, you see. He is very actiony. I'm going to do his logo now. I started with a circle, cut the two edges off the bottom to make, kind of like a triangle out of it. Cut up the sides nice and straight, the top right across. I'm cutting a little rectangle niche out of the center there. It's hard to see. I should have zoomed it in, but I didn't. Cut at the ears a little bit of an angle, just to give the idea of his little cat ears there. I'm using my veining tool just to press down and kind of wiggle around to make the eye holes. Put a couple little lines, little cuts in the top and the bottom for the nose and the stripes. Stick it on his chest. There you go. Alright, now I'm going to add a little ball for his nose. I put a couple of little light blue triangles in his ears because I know there is some difference there, but as you can see, my printer is not in color. And I was feeling lazy, honestly, and didn't look it up. So I just used the light blue. I filled in his eyes with some white gum paste, as you can see. I gave him 2 blue eyes, little irises there, just balls of gum paste pressed down in the center. Their eyes or their irises, I should say, are small, so don't make them touch, or fill up a whole lot of the eyes. They're pretty small. I'm drawing on the mouth because I'm keeping it easier. Using a blue food coloring marker for this, I'm just drawing some lines on the hands, making the creases in the palms, separating out the joints a little, and then I'm going to move on to Owlette. Now, when I cut her out, I had included her wings. I'm cutting her wings away. I'm going to hang on to them, though. Don't get rid of those wings. I have some burgundy gum paste that I traced her out on top of, as you can see. And I'm going to use some rose-colored gum paste now for the wings that I'm going to trace out. So that's what I was saying. If you do cut out the wings, and separate them from the body, it makes it easier to do her body, but then you got to make sure your wings are intact so you can put them back together just like that. See that? Lovely. Now she's got one set of her wings. Putting it on together with a little bit of water. And I'm having her sitting on a paper towel. I did it for the others as well. Same thing. It's just easier to move them around, and this way when it dries, it'll be nice and dried to each other and not dried to the counter. I did the same thing for the other side. I just cut out the wing. There's like a little bit of the one wing that shows between her legs, so I cut out a wedge there, kind of filling it in with the way her one leg is kicked to the side. And now, just like Catboy, I'm going to cut another layer out for her mask. I'm going to do her face next. So I got that beige color again, trimmed out her face, and these are smaller, so she's got like a tiny little face. I'm putting her mask on because I needed to know where the actual face goes, or the mouth part goes. So you can line it up just like that, and then when you're ready, you're going to put a couple little creases on the side of her Owlette mask on either side because it kind of like wraps around and tucks in a bit. Add some water, stick that mask in place. There you go. And now her mask does leave her head kind of exposed in the back, and so it is recessed. You see what I did there? I used my ball tool to mark out where her eyes are going to be. Her eyes are kind of more almond shaped, so I am going carefully with my small ball tool there just to kind of make them a little bit more oval than round. Fill them in with a little bit of gum paste. Take that white gum paste that I got there, put a little ball of the same burgundy color on top of each eye. Again, being careful not to fill in the eye too much. I'm adding her nose. Her nose kind of sits underneath her mask, whereas the other boys, it kind of sits on top. So just be careful when you add her nose. And this long piece here is going to be the trim that goes around her wings. So I rolled it out nice and thin, cut a real long piece. I rubbed the wet paintbrush along the back. That's what you saw me do there. And then I'm just working my way around using my knife blade to get in those creases, tucking it all in, trim off the extra, just like that, and then you kind of have to, you might have to like pinch it a little bit or smooth it with your fingers just to make it a little more even, make it sure it gets in all the little grooves properly. And for the other side, I'm basically doing the same thing. I got my nice long strip, and I'm going to wrap it around the outside, but instead of putting water on the long thin piece that I cut, I went ahead and put it onto the wing itself. So there you go. Now she's got a wing. A little bit of food coloring marker there on her mouth. She's got a mouth. I went over her eyes. I don't know what happened to that footage, and did her little eyelashes that she has because she has like black at the top of her eyes. I'm putting a little thin piece that I rolled between my fingers, real skinny little piece, across the top of her mask just to separate it out from the top of her head because it really kind of blended together. You couldn't see it too well, and I wanted to separate it out more. This little piece I'm going to show you is going to be her logo on her chest. So I started with a circle. I cut 2 wedges, at the bottom to make an arrow basically. I'm cutting a little niche out of the top to kind of make 2 little triangles, for the owl's ears at the top. I'm pressing inward on the sides, just like we do with the mask to make the little grooves to make the wings. using my veining tool, the little sharp point, to make 2 little tiny holes for the eyes and sticking it on there. Now I'm using a burgundy food coloring marker that I happen to have to draw the rest of the wing feathers on. If you decide to do it this way, start with the outside and your wing feather tip matches up between your 2 outer wings. So you see how they're coming together like that, and then I'm going to do it again with the inner layer. So wherever the one feather ends, it's going to be at the tip where 2 others meet. Okay, now for our last one is Gecko. I'm going to kind of move fast on him. He's pretty basic. Again, did the same thing. I just cut him out, trimmed out his body. I had his 1 forearm at the top there that I cut out and put on top. I did his face and his mask just like the others. No surprises or anything, not being sneaky. I'm putting on his little knee pads and elbow pads. It's just some light green that I made. Just make sure you kind of follow the curve and watch, the angle of everything. Put it on his one elbow. I'm adding that same light green color now to his eyebrows. His eyebrows, again, are just real skinny little pieces that I roll between my fingers and then kind of pressed into place. Now for the top of his head, I'm making basically like little light green Tic Tacs. I made one on the top there that sits in the front, and the second one sits behind it, and just behind it. So that way you've got, again, the layering effect going. This is going to be his logo. His logo is super basic, so I had a circle, cut a little, corner out from the top, leaving the center. So now, I don't know, I got a plug or a boat or a shape or something. Trying to round off that top piece a little bit. Use my veining tool to create a couple of angular reptile style eyes there. And then stick it on. Now you'll see his arm is in the way, so I marked it off. And I'm going to cut off the extra carefully. So I'm left with whatever is left. And then I'm going to stick that on with some water this time. And just press it into place, work it around that one fist so that it looks like it is behind it. Looks pretty good, right? Like, nothing surprising here. He's pretty simple and basic after seeing the other 2. I'm drawing in his smile, giving him the pupils in his eyes. I decided to add a little bit of light green to the bottom of his feet just to separate him out again a little bit more. I don't remember if he has it or not in the picture, but I did it this way because I thought it looked better. Sometimes you have to take artistic risks and artistic license with whatever you're making. Now, I am using a dark green edible food coloring marker, and I am drawing little scales all over his body. I've got it going down his tail, I've got it going down his arms, his torso, I'm working on his head, and I kind of just figured whatever direction his limb was going in, just start there and head backwards. So, yeah, there you go. Put them together, and you've got the trio from PJ Masks. So I hope you found this video helpful. Please like and subscribe because it does help me out. I've got a ton of other videos, so take a look around. And as always, thank you for watching Caketastic Cakes.